Okay, Dad, back at my mum's house, straight into it. Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say that I'm not friends with him or anything. I think we're sort of very different. The shoot was in the year 2000. We were both different men back then.
Actually, talking about that, not being friends with them, we actually want to start messaging some people who you photograph, hopefully to get them to sit in on the videos as well.
That's going to
So,
happen.
yeah,
That's
that
going to
will
happen.
happen.
We've had some very positive responses actually. But getting back to Daniel Craig.
So how come you've chosen to? So you chose to do Daniel Craig today. How
Yeah,
come?
I saw that he's got this film out called Queer.
Okay.
About he plays this sort of aging, predatory gay man, louche, drug taking, debauched, and his sort of kind of pursuit of this young, beautiful man and everything. And I thought it's really great, and I can speak from personal experience to see him taking on more interesting and provocative roles after having been sort of James Bond for
Yeah.
so long.
Typecasted.
And although, as I said, I don't really feel like we connected when I did the shoot back in 2000, I just have always had a lot of admiration for him. And I also photographed his wife, Rachel Weisz, who's also an amazing actor as well. I mean, like him, they kind of inhabit these roles.
Is she worthy of her own video?
Absolutely, we'll
Okay.
definitely do one on her. I mean, I did her when
We'll throw a couple pictures of her up, but
yeah,
main
no,
focus Daniel
I
today.
think we should throw a couple of pictures up because
Yeah.
she's one of the most beautiful people. Like
Okay.
him, actually, they're both really beautiful.
Very attractive couple.
Yeah, very attractive, and also they enable the viewer to project their fantasies onto, and like a proper film star, but also the range as well. Like they both are polymorphous. They can play such a huge variety of different roles. So I photographed him back in 2000 before Bond, before the fuse was lit and he became this huge global superstar. At that point, he'd done smaller films. He'd done this film called The Mother, where he played this young man who has a sort of an affair or a relationship with an older woman. It was really interesting. And he'd also, as someone who's slightly obsessed with Francis Bacon, he played George Dyer, who was Francis Bacon's doomed lover. I basically photographed Michael Pepiart, who is he's an art historian, and he wrote extensively about Francis Bacon. And that was my way into seeing Love is the Devil, the film that was about that relationship and about Francis Bacon.
So did you see that recently?
Yeah, I watched it recently.
Right.
And
So
I thought,
you're suddenly getting into Francis Bacon. This isn't something you've been into.
no, it's been happening about for the last 3 years.
Okay.
Because Michael Pepiart, he gave me a copy of his book when I photographed him. I photographed him for his publisher.
This was 3 years ago? Or?
Yeah, about 3 years ago. Well, he was great, and he gave me his book, and I read his book, and there was such an interesting coterie of people that were around Francis Bacon. Like Lucian Freud and Frank Auerbach, these other artists, and sort of other photographers as well, like Deacon, who was this louche alcoholic photographer who was photographing the whole scene at the time. It's really interesting. But basically, Daniel Craig played this role, and it's an extraordinary performance. It's a sort of, he's a really pitiable figure that sort of ends up sort of taking a drug overdose in Paris on the night of Francis Bacon's greatest sort of exhibition while he was alive. And I just thought, with this latest film that he's made, Queer, he's returning to those more interesting roles, not what you'd expect the actor that played James Bond to be taking on.
Yeah, makes sense. So check out Queer if you see it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't say that I know that it's a great movie, but I know that Call Me By Your Name, the director made that film, and that was very well received.
Okay, cool. So this was in 2000. Back to the photography.
Back to the photography.
So you've got some contact sheets there. We'll be throwing them up.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those situations that it happens again and again and again. You're kind of stymied by the location. Okay. And so I kind of, it's right in the heart of Soho. It's quite hot. It's July. It's the middle of summer. And, it's very easy in that situation to think, well, this is just a sort of a hurdle I've got to jump before I can get on with the rest of my day, and not actually try to expect to get something amazing and different out of it. And quite often what I do in those sorts of situations, and I've done over the years with Richard Branson, Enrique Iglesias, the Spice Girls, is take people away from the environment in which I meet them. It's awkward when you meet them. There's the publicist there, there's all these peripheral people that are kind of trying to get in the way and put their two penneth in.
Yeah.
And so quite often I take people up onto the roof. So I photographed Enrique Iglesias in Rome on top of the roof, the Spice Girls in Bangkok on top of the roof, and Richard Branson at the Virgin Airways upper class lounge. That I took him out up on the roof.
Yeah,
and
it's interesting. Like where we normally do our videos in my living room, you said if you were to photograph someone in there, your heart would drop. So yeah, it's a small room. Maybe also an excuse for why some of our previous videos have been.
Yeah, we're not making an excuse. We just got to do better.
We got to do better.
So up on top of this particular roof, there were all these kind of air conditioning machines. And when he ended up taking on the role of Bond, he was a kind of machine that was kind of employed in the service of the United Kingdom, the Secret Service, a killing machine, really, licensed to kill. And he had this kind of bullish quality, didn't he? I mean, coming out of the sea, all muscles and kind of, very impressive. It was that's an iconic sort of image. Of course. And so it kind of made sense. And I didn't really get much from him. It was like photographing a potato, a still life. I was just basically not really directing him. Yeah. But I did have one thing that kind of fell in my lap. And that was that he... when he got ready, it was hot outside, and he took his jumper off. He had a T-shirt, and on the T-shirt was written the word "evil."
Yeah, it's graphic.
It's graphic.
It's striking, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and he's got bright blue eyes. That helps.
He's got amazing sort of pale blue eyes.
Yeah, actually, he's wearing shades in a few of the pictures. Do you remember asking him to take them off?
Yeah, I would have expected. I almost certainly, because the first thing picture editors say to you is, did you do any without the sunglasses?
Yeah, but you didn't for Lenny Kravitz. That's a previous video.
But the writing on his T-shirt is doing a lot of the visual heavy lifting.
Okay.
Because you could put a lot of people in, and I think I did Rupert Grint, didn't I?
Or Satan.
He had Satan written on his shirt, and you're halfway there when you have a really graphic.
So he was just wearing that. That wasn't. He didn't have stylists or.
And also he had these amazing eyes, which I first became aware of through watching Our Friends in the North, which was a brilliant program that he did.
You're quite a fan of him, actually.
I am actually on the quiet. Yeah, I mean he's a brilliant actor, and he's not gregarious, or he doesn't engage in kind of tittle tattle.
You only see him as an actor online. You don't see him having a big social media profile.
He's not in Hello with Rachel sort of showing their children or whatever. He's very enigmatic, and I admire that. I'd say he's an artist.
Okay. Cool. So that bit more on the photography.
So it's all, I think, pretty much daylight. I might have got one of my battery-powered Pro Photos up there, but looking at the contacts now, I'm pretty sure that it was just daylight. I just used what I had there. No, I think probably I was just using daylight. I mean, these are this is the first time I've looked at these since for a while. So, as is often the case, the smaller the production, if you have lights and they're on stands, then you have to sort of like physically navigate your way around them and then keep moving them, and he's moving them. That's why daylight, not only is it sort of more atmospheric, it's easier to work with because you can respond in real time.
Completely.
Yeah.
And good backdrops, graphic T-shirt, and an attractive guy makes a very good picture.
Absolutely. So some of it is direct sunlight, so hard directional sunlit, and that's the ones that are where he's wearing the sunglasses. And then quite a good little tip actually is if you put people in the shade, it sounds bizarre. It sounds like anti-photography. You're kind of actually
avoiding the light.
But what you're actually doing is and then you expose them correctly. What you're actually lighting them with is all the lights that the hard light that's going onto a building or whatever.
And,
and it's reflecting back, and it's really soft.
So yeah,
and of course they're not going to have a problem, squinting, and they're not going to need to wear shades or whatever. So
if you were to give one golden tip from this shoot, one moral of the story, photographically, what would it be?
I'd say this is an exercise in graphics.
Okay.
So there is a symmetry, and there are kind of most of the photographs sort of obey very well established ideas about composition. So for instance, this picture, you've got thirds. So that line there is almost exactly a third away through the picture. And then you've got these pictures which are very, very symmetrical and very, very simple, sort of graphic, sort of headshot. And then the rest of it was just sort of improvising and hoping that I get an interesting moment. And I don't feel that he was really performing for me or in anything other than just being a physical presence, a sort of brooding, quiet, as I said, presence that you can project your own fantasies onto. I do actually remember that I just thought we're not on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
I'm sort of like, a big mouth. I am kind of loquacious. I sort of just basically like to pontificate. I'm also, I think, I don't know what, I couldn't, normally with people, I can get a sense of who they are and I can respond appropriately. I didn't make a fool of myself, but I didn't get a sense that we would be friends or whatever.
Cool, I think that's good for this video. One thing to note, thank you everyone who bought a Jarvis print over the last few weeks. They've done really well. We'd love to see them on your walls. Feel free to tweet us or something.
Absolutely.
Tweet Harry Borden. And thanks a lot. Oh wait, do you want to talk about, we might be doing another print of PJ Harvey?
Yeah, this has been sort of a lovely surprise actually, and I think it's good. It's good to spread. If people like the pictures, and we try and make them affordable, it's good to get them out there, and it's good for the channel, and it's nice that people can enjoy the work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so sad that this doesn't just apply to me, it applies to all photographers. You take all these pictures and then, I often think if we didn't do this, then, instead of making films with me, you'd be sort of clearing out my possessions when I'm sort of like, I've got dementia, and, all this stuff would just end up in a skip. I'm sure that does happen from time to time.
Yeah, well, you've got friends who burnt all their negatives and...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we plan on doing another one of PJ Harvey, the deteriorated one. So I'll put it up on screen.
Yeah, so there's a photograph, a PJ Harvey picture that I think we talked about it in the Fever Dream.
Yeah.
The PJ Harvey image sort of fell out of its box for safekeeping. I'm not going to pretend that I was very diligent about looking after all these prints. I mean, they've been all over the place in various agencies and so on. Anyway, it fell out of the box. It was on the floor. I didn't do anything about it, and it had an acetate sleeve, but some condensation, and it got some
mold.
It got mold. Yeah, it got patina.
Yeah.
Over the years, and I sort of suddenly realised it was kind of an extraordinary thing.
It's beautiful.
And so after 25 years, I scanned it quickly before it could deteriorate anymore. So we'll be doing an edition of that at some point.
Cool, yeah. Check the website, harryborden.com. Cool. Thanks for watching, and see you next week.